Have a good final, man.
How you doing, big man? Doing good? Good.
It's not a 2 minute, man. It's a great whistle. I like that reset all day.
Oh, go ahead. We're all good.
I just don't like it. It's the skate that trips him. I don't like it.
6-11, so we got a good goal. All right, thank you. 44, cross check.
Eyes everywhere. Okay, let's go. Come on.
What up, high and wide fam? Welcome back to another edition of Behind the Stripes with the great Dave Jackson. Dave, you recovered a little bit, but how you feeling today?
I'm good. It's been a bit of a hiatus for us here. I might not look old, but I feel old sometimes, and I just had both my hips replaced. So I'm told by the doctor that when I heal, I'm gonna feel my hips are gonna feel like I'm 20 again, both of them. And I told the doctor, I go, when I was 20, my hips hurt. So he said, well, then you're gonna feel like nothing you've ever felt before. So it's going well. It's been about 10 days and walking just with a cane and a little bit of pain, but nothing excruciating. And fingers crossed, I get back on the ice, back on the bike, and we'll be going in a couple of weeks.
Are you going to come out of retirement with those new hips, man? Go doing our 1,500 games?
No, I don't think the league wants me back. I think they like having me advocate for their officials on TV, but yeah, I'm good right where I am.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, you said it has been a hiatus, man. You've been recovering. I've been slinging some cheesesteaks. We've probably had our best 8-week run at the shop, so it's been a pretty fun, exciting time right now. So things are picking up. We've both been kind of busy, so it's nice to get back. And this is going to be a Flyers-centric show. We're excited about that. But before we dive in, Dave, tell people about the shirt you're wearing.
Oh, yeah. Look at this great T-shirt. Everyone can see it. If you can't see it, here's a better view of what it looks like. For people to follow hockey, they knew who that is.
Yep.
Barry Melrose, longtime NHL and ESPN hockey icon, coach, player, great family man. People are aware he retired this fall, and he's dealing with Parkinson's. So he stepped away to deal with his health and spend time with his family. And so him and John Buchacross came up with this design, put it on T-shirts, and John Buchacross is selling them on his website. And if anyone's interested, it's bucciot.com. bucciot.com. That's where John Buchacross is selling this T-shirt. All proceeds are going to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's research. So if you like the T-shirt and you want to help out Parkinson's research, it's a cool shirt. Money well spent.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I think for especially my generation, Barry Melrose was, like you said, iconic. I don't know, NHL Tonight, we grew up with that, and that was all about it. He was the face of that. He was, it's hard to think back to hockey games and when the NHL was on ESPN the first time around and not associate any of that without Barry Melrose. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I never refereed Barry. It was before my time as a player. But I did the Memorial Cup in Chicoutimi in 1988, and he was the coach of the Medicine Hat Tigers, I think the team was. They ended up winning the Memorial Cup second year in a row that year. He was the coach of Medicine Hat. And then a year or two later, he was coaching Adirondack Red Wings and in the American Hockey League, and I refereed when he was there. And then I refereed when he was in the NHL with LA Kings. Took them to Stanley Cup Finals in '93, lost to Montreal. So, yeah, it was quite the run for Barry, and we wish him all the best. Great man.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, definitely an icon, and NHL hockey legend for sure. So, our show today, Dave, we'll talk a little bit before we got started, but we're going to go back just a couple days. March 9th, the Tampa Bay Lightning beat the Flyers 7-0. They actually honored the 2004 Stanley Cup team, which I believe John Tortorella coached, if I remember correctly. That was his
He
team.
Did.
Yeah, they honored that team that night, and he lasted a whole 10 and a half minutes into the game. he was frustrated with some calls. Had a exchange with Wes McCauley back and forth. Ended up the hammer got dropped on him, fine and 2-game suspension. But Dave, let's just talk through the process, what you believe could have been going on, and how the official Wes McCauley. Everybody knows who Wes McCauley is. We're not going to put anybody else's name out there, but everybody knows Wes McCauley, a legendary official in his own right. What Wes may have been doing throughout the whole process. And he said it ended up with Torts getting ejected at the about 10.5-minute mark. But you think it started earlier in the game with the first call that was on Ronnie Attard. So what do you think was there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure it was the first call. I think there's a lot of factors that conspired to culminate in what happened. Let's face it, the Flyers didn't play their best hockey game. There was some, goals that might not have been highlight goals that were scored. And there's going to be some frustration, right? Frustration from a coach's perspective, frustration from a player's perspective. I didn't watch the game, but I went back afterwards and checked it out yesterday, just because of all the hubbub on social media. So I believe the penalties were like 3-0 at the time, or when he got thrown out of the game. First penalty, and this is just strictly my opinion, there was a hold in the crease, and it was a legit call. But I think maybe they got the number wrong, and it ended up being Attard, who didn't really look as if he did anything, but there was a hold that happened right beside him. And that happens sometimes, where you just lose the number in the heat of the infraction. You got bodies flying everywhere, but there's definitely a penalty there. And whether it was Attard or not, that puts you down 1. I think they scored. Anyways, it was like 3-0. Hathaway comes on the ice. They're frustrated. He runs into a guy during a stoppage, and I think the referees at this point are just going, "Listen, we're not gonna babysit all afternoon." So they assess him 10-minute misconduct and say, "Listen, we're just gonna lay the hammer down here." Now people might say, "Well, 10 sounds like a lot," but they've already had a couple of minors. They've been scored on a lot. So if you only give them you've got to address it. So I guess you can give them unsportsmanlike or roughing, but then you put the team down again. They're on killing another power play. So I think, to give them 10 actually gives the team a break. Yeah, they lose the play for 10 minutes, but they're not killing another penalty because the penalty kill's not working.
Yeah,
so they put it in the box.
The first call was, like you said, holding, and you said they got the number wrong. The next 2 calls were actually fighting, Dolores and Watson.
That was a good fight too.
Yeah. And then Ronnie Attard got another 2-minute minor for tripping. And that's the one that seemed to irk Torts the most. And then it was at that next stoppage, about 40 seconds later, that's when Hathaway got the 10-minute misconduct. So I think it was that exchange, the trip, and then the Hathaway misconduct. And Attard, from like Shaw had a quote after the game that he thought it was just 2 guys battling against each other. One guy fell down, one guy didn't. So they felt like the call could have went either way, and it didn't go their guy's way.
Right, and that just always seems to be the way, right? When your team's not on a roll, everything kind of goes against you, and that's just So it works in golf, it works in hockey. Everything goes against you. If I'm not mistaken, though, when John did get thrown out of the game, they got scored on. Did they not? They got scored on. That culminated maybe from that power play.
Yeah, it was from that power play they got scored on. Yep.
So I've talked a lot about penalties and what referees call and referees didn't call. This wasn't a call that Wes made. It was his partner made this call. All about sight lines. It's just all about sight lines. And, you could show a room full of people, a room full of knowledgeable hockey people. You could show them a play and none of them would think it's a penalty. And then you could show them the same play from a different angle. Everybody says, "Oh, that's a penalty." So unfortunately for officials, you can't be in all those different angles all at the same time. The referee was on the other side of the ice, and he called what he thought was a trip. I'm not going to disagree with what was it you said Shaw said?
Yeah, Shaw said, yeah.
I'm not going to disagree. It's probably something players clipped skates and went down and probably could have been left alone. And But that in itself is not enough to, get yourself that worked up to get thrown out of the game. And I think it was just domino effect of how the team was playing, and who knows what went on. Who knows what went on in the either the morning skate or the skate the day before. Maybe guys were, not putting an effort in. Maybe they were not clicking, and there's a frustration aspect from the coach. The guys aren't doing what I ask them, and then you get this, and sometimes it's just all perfect storm. It blows up. So I don't think we really got to see everything that John said or did. But ultimately, Wes threw him out of the game. Assessed the bench minor and threw him out at the same time. Kind of a package deal, all in one. Sometimes you can call it just two. And then if things continue, you would go to the ejection. Other times, you just realize this is crossed the line. I'm not going to go. It's not going to be incremental. It's just going to be, please leave. Please leave. And I think that's what he did. But from what I can see from the videos, John wanted to discuss things and not leave, which, is never. You're never going to find a referee who's going to go over and discuss something with a coach who's already ejected. That's just a recipe for disaster. I mean,
no need to set that precedent, right?
Coach has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And B, you almost might want to save him from himself. You go over there, who knows what he's going to do or say? I'm not saying John, I'm saying any coach. Yeah. Who knows what he's going to do or say when he's got nothing to lose? So you almost want to, because if something bad happens there, people are going to say, why'd you go over there? You knew he was mad. You threw him out of the game. Well, what were we hoping to accomplish? So people were on Twitter were asking me, why didn't he go over and talk to him? That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. When it gets to a certain point where you feel a coach has overstepped his boundaries and you throw him out, you're never going to talk to him at that point. It's just not going to happen. So that's not the referee being aloof or being bigger than the game. That's just standard operating procedure. Referee's never going to go over and talk to someone he's thrown out of the game. Now, John didn't want to leave, and the players were over talking to Wes. And I give Wes a lot of credit. Wes wasn't showboating. Wes, people were saying to me on Twitter, like, why is he making it about himself and everything? And I think, quite to the contrary, he didn't make it about himself. He didn't make a big show of ejecting him. He wasn't skidding around, pointing his finger at him, threatening to leave and all that. He simply stood at the penalty box and outweighted him. I think what he probably told the players was, boys, I can call a delay of game here, which will put you down for 4 minutes or 5-on-3 for 2 minutes. I don't want to do that. Ultimately I can forfeit the game, but I'm not going to do that. I mean, it's the NHL. We're not going to do that, but that's an option. But I'm not going to go over there and threaten him with it. Why don't you guys go over and just explain to him nicely that his day's over, just leave, because I've got more time than you guys do. I mean, I'm probably staying overnight and you guys got a plane to catch. So, I've got all the time in the world.
That back and forth between the players and the officials is pretty interesting. I don't think people realize that, like, the kind of discretion the ref has there. Like you just explained, McCauley had multiple options right there, and he just tells the players, hey, look, if you get him to leave, we can just move on.
He did, but he chose not to pour gas on the fire.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have ramped it up. He could have ramped it up way more. He could have given another 2. He could have threatened forfeiture. He could have been over there pointing his finger at him but he did none of that. He just kind of stood, looked down at the ice. He was talking to the players. I'm sure there was some great banter. I'm sure some great one-liners over there. And I know the Flyers players love and protect their coach, but I'm still sure there was some great banter going on. And there probably some of the guys are going, I'm not going to tell him. You go tell him. And, they're going, I'm not telling him. You tell him. But
that's great.
And I think his final suspension is not so much for his actions for getting tossed. It's probably just to set a precedent that when you're asked to leave, you have to leave. You can't be, that's not the hill you die on. But I got to tell you, it's, I get asked more when people want to talk about coaches. I get asked more questions about John Tortorella than any other coach.
I mean, I think the league's better with John Tortorella in it. I'm going to be
yeah.
like, whenever he does retire, I'm going to be sad. Not just because he's a Flyers head coach. Like, I think he's one of the most entertaining coaches out there. He like Iron Mike. When Mike King was in there, he was a great coach too. Like, he's entertaining. You know what I mean? Like, and at the end of the day, that's what this is. It's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to enjoy this.
Well, as I said, people ask me all the time. John Tortorella is in my top 3 all time of coaches I admire and respect. He is a consummate gentleman. Thinks he won't tell anyone this, but the stuff he does away from the game, the charitable work he does, the stuff he does behind the scenes, not even for charity, just he hears the people that are in need and the things he is a wonderful human being, really, truly cares about people. And then you get his on-ice persona where people only see him when things like that happen on Saturday. People don't see him the other 99% of the time behind the bench where he's not saying a word. I worked in the NHL from, NHL games from 90 to 2018. That's at 28 years.
Yep.
John Tortorella never once worked me to try and get a call. He was never in my ear. He was never criticizing me, telling me, watch for this, watch for that. He let me do my job. He would leave me alone until he felt he couldn't leave you alone anymore. Then he'd let you have it. It was never personal. He'd get upset. And John and I had some memorable beefs where we were like nose to nose. He's standing in the bench. I was at the bench. We're yelling at each other. And that's bad on me because I'm supposed to be the guy to bring things down and calm things down. Sometimes I let my emotions get the better of me. So I had a few of those with John, and then invariably I'd go over next period because I'd say it's on me to sort of say, hey, I shouldn't have allowed that to happen. And I start to talk, and he'd look at me and laugh and go, Dave, it's done. It's forgotten. He goes, I don't even remember it. Let's move on. And that's the type of man he is. He doesn't hold a grudge. He's not out there to get you. He doesn't think you're picking on him. He doesn't have a complex that he's just a good man who coaches hockey. And I've got all the time in the world for John Tortorella. And I'm pretty sure the guys in the ice today feel that way about him as well. So he's very misunderstood because all you get to see is his sound bites, his bickering with the media and things and all that. But if people got to know John Tortorella, they would know what a great man he is.
Hey, that's some awesome insight on Tortorella because, you definitely only hear the negative stuff about it, that, he yells at his players or he's yelling at the media, like you said. So that's awesome to have that kind of insight. But one thing I did want to ask you, because I saw somebody make this comment, and this is, that's some insight on Tortorella, but this is more about Wes McCauley's insight. So you mentioned that his partner made the tripping call that we think kind of started setting this off. He's a younger official, and Tortorella was upset.
I'm not sure the tripping call set it off. I think maybe that was the the final nail in the coffin. I think the play of the team from the drop of the puck is what started setting it off.
That was So that was that tripping call was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah. So somebody made a comment that was Wes McCauley trying to do the best he could to protect the younger official from a game that could be getting out of hand, and that's why he ended up, made the decision that, hey, Tortorella crossed the line. I'm tossing you. I'm looking out for my crew and for the rest of this game. Is that something that goes through an official's head?
Yeah. So specifically, I don't know. I tried finding isolated cameras of what actually happened and what actually transpired, and I'm not able to find any really good footage. So I don't know who he was yelling at. I don't know what kind of mannerisms, what hand gestures he did. So I really have no idea. But in general, I know when I came in the league in 1990, and then in 1993, I was full-time NHL. There was one referee, and you had no one out there looking after you. I mean, sometimes a linesman would look after you, they're veteran linesmen, but for the most part, you were out there by yourself and you sink or swim. In 2000, we went to the 2-referee system. So I'd already done about 500 games, but I was still a rookie in relation to Don Koharski, Bill McCreary, Dan Marawelli, Paul Dvorsky, guys like that have been in the league longer than me, And we'd go out on the ice, and even though they knew I had 500 games as one referee, when a coach would get on me, like a veteran coach, here's Bill McCreary with like 15 Stanley Cup finals at that point. He'd go over to the bench and he would tell coach, that's enough. I've had enough. You're not going to yell at the young guy, because if you do, I'm taking care of it. And he had your back that way. And all the great ones did. And that's the culture Wes was raised in. And I think any leader, any veteran referee who's a leader, is going to walk that fine line between allowing his younger partner to find his way, sow his own oats, but at the same time, I'm not going to let you abuse him. And that's a fine line to walk, because you don't want to be seen as always fighting a younger guy's battles. They're full-time. They're getting paid to do their job. They've got to figure it out themselves. But yes, at some point, a veteran guy will make sure it doesn't go overboard. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened in Saturday's game, because, like I said, I don't really know the whole how the sequence transpired. I wasn't able to find really good footage of it. But in theory, sure, that's a definite possibility.
Yeah, a veteran official sticking up for a younger official is something, you're saying it's commonplace. That's all. So,
yeah,
like I said, I thought it was interesting. Somebody posed that question. I was like, that's a unique way to think about it. We think about veteran players sticking up for younger players. Sometimes we don't think about it from an official standpoint that, hey, this guy, might be reffing his whatever 30th game, 100th game, but he's barely been around the block, and you got somebody else that's got 1,000 games under their belt. Yeah, you might have somebody that has a little bit more of a voice, like, hey, leave that guy alone. So I just thought it was unique, and that's why I wanted to bring it up to you, see if that was something that actually went on.
Yeah, there's so much that goes on in officiating that's not obvious to the just general public. It's, we can write a book on you talk about guys, slap shot on open net, they get jumped, it's unwritten code or whatever. There's a ton of unwritten codes when it comes to being an official, and none of it's nefarious. It's just all for the betterment of the game and do what's right and quality control.
All right, man. Well, no, this is a good episode. I'm glad we talked about it. So we're winding down, and it's soapbox time. So I'm going to go and throw it to you. I know you got a heartfelt one. So,
do we have time to tell a John Tortorella anecdote?
Oh, absolutely. We have plenty of time for Tortorella, man. Go ahead, man.
So I've got several, but most of them are there's a lot of PG rated language and stuff. So I can't tell those ones, but this is a funny one. He was coaching in Columbus, and I was working the game, and I just come back from being ill. I had the flu. I missed 2 games, and I told my boss, yeah, I think I can work Friday. And Friday, I probably was still ill. I was still sick, but I felt okay, good enough to work. I mean, because when you're sick, you feel like someone else is supposed to have a day off, and they're going to work for you. Yeah, it's not like a team where, right, you're getting some rookie in the game would be scratched, so you're doing him a favor. That's not how it works for us. If I'm not working, some guy that's supposed to be at home watching his kids' school play has to hop on a plane and go cover for me. So I said I can work Friday. So here I am in Columbus on Friday night, but I'm not feeling really good. And you're not feeling good. Sometimes you're not as focused as you should be. Absolutely. And so it's early first period, and there's a play at center ice, and a Columbus player swings his hand at the puck, and the puck goes to a teammate, and I kill the play for a hand pass. Well, as I kill it, the linesman standing right by the bench, he's waving it off. And I guess what happened was he swung, and it missed his hand, hit him in the chest, and bounced down, and his teammate picked it up. So it wasn't a hand pass. But it was at center ice. So, I mean, it didn't create a breakaway. It was all it was an unnecessary whistle. And John lost it. He was yelling at me. And I was like, so this could go back to, you talk about games. There was probably other factors at play. He might have been mad at his team. He might have been frustrated at something. I mean, I don't know what it was, but he's kind of yelling at me. But I know John so well. I'm going to go over to the bench and go, what's going on, John? It was a hand pass. And if I was wrong, okay, I was wrong about a hand pass at center ice. I mean, it's not the end of the world, right? So we go over, and I'm trying to get a word in, and he's just like, you got to do your job out here, man. You got to focus. We're focused. You got to be focused. And in my head, I'm saying, he's right. He's right. I do have to be focused, and I'm probably not focused. So I'm going to be better. But it's not that big a deal. And we're going back and forth and yelling. And so I end the conversation with, come on, John, give me a break. I go, it's not like I missed an effing goal. Right?
Yeah.
So we drop the puck. I kid you not. We go like 3 minutes. And I'm down in the other team's end. Columbus comes in. They blast a slap shot. And the goalie gives it one of these. And the goalie thinks he has it in his chest. And I go like 1,000, 2, 1,000. And I go, tweet. And I kill the play. And as I'm blowing the whistle, I see the puck lying in the slot. And Columbus buries it in the open net. So I put my head down. It's no goal. It's not. I mean, you can't suck the air back out of your whistle, right? And my words came back to haunt me. It's not like I disallowed a goal or something. And sure enough, so now I'm 0 for 2, and I'm just looking over the bench, and John's shaking his head and waving his hand. So I must have had good fortune because they ended up winning that game 7-0.
Oh, all right. So hey, you're okay.
They scored again like 2 minutes later, and inside I'm like, okay, well now we're even. But then they kept pumping. I forget who they were playing, but they won 7-0. So in the third period, and this goes back to what I said earlier about John. In the third period, with TV timeout, and I skated over to the box because I felt bad about disallowing that goal. And I skated over. I go, hey John, that goal that I disallowed, and you talked about me being focused, and that's what he said to me. He looked at me. He goes, Dave, I said some things I shouldn't have said, and it's forgotten. It's over. I'm sorry we had that conversation. And I went, thanks, John, and skated away. And that's always left an impression. He's a gentleman. He's a good person.
That's awesome, man. Like I said, first of all, that's a great story. And I can't believe you disallowed a goal after you told him you didn't do it. That's awesome. Yeah,
my own words come back to haunt me. I think after that, I was kind of superstitious to ever tell somebody, it's not as if I did this, because then that's going to happen.
I'm never saying that ever again.
Yeah, I'm never going to talk about something I didn't do because we know it's going to happen.
No, that's so awesome, man. No, that's some great insight to Tortorella, man. Because like I said, people don't get to see that behind the curtain, so that's awesome. But no, I appreciate that story, man. And I'll throw it back to you, right back to you for soapbox time, then, man. Right.
So a soapbox, I usually don't. You always kind of catch me off guard, and this time I had one. So it's with a heavy heart that I want to say my father Graham Jackson. He passed away on Saturday morning. He would have been 92 next month. So we had my dad for a long time, and he was a great man. Sacrificed everything for his family. The kind of guy, people say, be the man your dog thinks you are. And that was who my dad was. There was no false errors about him. He was a genuine, great person, role model, integrity. He did the right thing even when he knew no one was watching. I can only strive to be like half the man he is. And like I said, he would have been 92 in April. He was driving a car up until a little less than a year ago. And he had his health, he had his mind, he was well spoken. We had great conversations up until the day before he died. So, last 6 months were rough. His health was starting to deteriorate, but he's in a good place now, and we're just fortunate to have such great memories. So there's my soapbox. Graham Jackson. Rest in peace, man.
That's awesome, man. And on behalf of myself and all the HW guys, send our condolences. Our thoughts are with you and your family. And on that note, I'm not going to even put a soapbox up there and give Graham Jackson the final moment of the show. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a great time. See you next